Single dad janitor rescues dying CEO at 3 a.m. Her shocking first words will haunt you forever. The night was thick with secrets, a velvet cloak under the dim flicker of fluorescent lights in a deserted office building. It was a world that should have been silent, yet the echoes of footsteps rang like a death knell. Jacob, a widowed janitor with weary shoulders and tired eyes, pushed his mop across the floor, the pungent smell of disinfectant swirling around him. As he turned the corner, he saw her, the CEO, Elise Montgomery, sprawled on the cold marble tiles. Her pale face glistened with sweat, the moonlight casting eerie shadows over her features. Time hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Panic gripped him as he ran. What was a powerful woman like Elise doing here at this unholy hour? He remembered whispers in the break room, her ruthlessness, her ability to crush competitors without a blink. But here she was, vulnerable and alone, a diamond necklace catching the light like a taunting specter. Jacob knelt beside her, his heart racing with fear. Her breathing was ragged, and each hiccup felt like a fragile thread ready to snap. "Help me," she gasped, her words barely escaping her lips. Her hazel eyes locked onto his, a mixture of terror and recognition flaring between them. The absurdity of the moment hit him. He was just the janitor, an invisible man in the grand design of corporate empires. But in this moment, he was her only hope. He noticed a faint scar tracing her collarbone, an unspoken story hidden beneath a tailored suit. Why did it feel like she was more than just a stranger? Silence enveloped them like a thick fog, and all Jacob could hear was the erratic thump of his own heart. His fingers trembled as he fished his phone out of his pocket, but the weight of the choice pressed down hard. Should he call for help? Or could he save her himself? The minute hand ticked slowly, and each second felt like a lifetime. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. His breath caught as Elise's eyes suddenly fixed on the darkness behind him, a chill dancing over his skin. "Don't let them find us," she whispered, her voice dripping with urgency and dread. Who were they? And why did her gaze seem to pierce through him, as if warning him of something lurking just out of sight? The questions spiraled in his mind, drowning out everything else. The clock on the wall ticked louder, each tick a reminder that time was running out. The silence stretched taut, and Jacob felt a knot tighten in his chest. What had he stumbled into? What sinister truth lurked beneath the surface of this seemingly simple rescue? Without knowing it, the night had transformed into a web of intrigue, pulling him deeper into a world of danger and dark secrets, where his every decision could mean the difference between life and death. Would he stand by and watch her slip away? As he pored over his thoughts, ready to act, the shadows loomed larger. What would he uncover about Elise, about himself, in this gripping moment? Jacob's heart thudded in his chest as Elise's plea hung in the air, a fragile thread of hope interwoven with a sense of impending doom. The weight of the darkness closed in, and for a fleeting moment, he considered bolting down the hallway to find help. But her eyes, wide with fear, pinned him in place. "Please," she whispered, wincing in pain. "They're coming for me. I can't let them win." The urgency in her voice stirred something deep within him, a visceral instinct to protect, to fight against the unseen forces threatening her life. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might summon the very threat that haunted her. "Who is coming?" But her gaze flitted beyond him again, scanning the dimly lit corridor as her body trembled, sweat glistening on her forehead. The silence grew heavier, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by her ragged breaths. "I don't have much time," she gasped. "You have to trust me, Jacob." "You don't know the danger." Before she could finish, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the far end of the hallway, drawing closer, rattling through Jacob's bones. Shadows flickered like ghosts brought to life by the fluorescent lights overhead. Panic surged through him, hot and heavy. "Get up," he urged, reaching to help her to her feet, but she collapsed against him, her body weak and trembling. "Stay quiet," Elise managed, her breath hitching as she clutched his shirt, the cold of her touch sending a shockwave through him. "They're stalking me, but I can't. I can't let them find us." With shaking hands, he glanced back toward the hallway, anxiety pooling in his stomach. He thought the footsteps would fade, but they grew louder, marching steadily toward them like an approaching thunderstorm. The clock on the wall ticked ominously in time with his racing heart, reminding him they were running out of time. "Come on, we need to hide," Jacob urged, urgency lacing his words. He scanned their surroundings, looking for some refuge. His eyes darted to a nearby storage closet, its door slightly ajar, a dark mouth inviting them into the safety of its shadows. He pulled Elise toward it, his own body reacting instinctively to the danger. As they ducked inside, he closed the door gently behind them, the darkness wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. They stood in silence, side by side, her rapid breaths mingling with the faint scent of cleaning products that lingered in the air. Through the thin wood of the door, he could hear muffled voices, angry and urgent. Panic twisted in his chest like a vice. Who were these people? What did Elise do to deserve such animosity? Would they find them? "This is insane," he muttered to himself, a knot of adrenaline surging through him. He turned to Elise, whose face was pale, her eyes wide. "We can't just sit here," but she urgently shook her head, gripping his arm with surprising strength. "If they find us," the words hung heavy. She had been hunted. They were not just after a business deal gone wrong. It ran deeper, far darker. Jacob's mind raced with possibilities, each as chilling as the last. Was there more to Elise than the ruthless CEO he had heard whispers about? Just then, the footsteps stopped right outside the door, and Jacob held his breath, fear coursing through him like ice. The muffled voices neared, and he glanced at Elise, searching for reassurance in her terrified gaze. "Stay quiet," she whispered again. But he could see the tremor in her hands, the fear they both shared manifested in a stark reality. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the air. The door to the hallway slammed open, and Jacob's heart stopped. What would happen next? How far was this deadly game of cat and mouse going to take them? As shadows deepened and the threat drew closer, he knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back now, and his life would never be the same. But what new horrors awaited them as the truth began to unravel? Jacob's mind raced, time slowing to an agonizing crawl as the world outside their flimsy refuge exploded into chaos. The door he'd just closed shook under a heavy force, the rattle sending fresh jolts of panic through his veins. He pressed himself closer to Elise, desperate to merge their heartbeats into one. "What if they find us?" he whispered, dread pooling in his stomach. The panic in her eyes made him wish for a weapon, anything he could use to protect her. The voices had escalated into shouts now, their angry tones spiraling as they echoed down the hall. "Elise, you can't hide from this," a gruff voice barked. It was familiar, like a thunderstorm rolling in close, yet unrecognizable enough to send chills down Jacob's spine. Whoever it was, he meant business. "Stay calm," Elise hissed, her grip tightening on his arm. She looked pale and fierce all at once, a contradiction that pushed his instincts even further into overdrive. "We want to let them take us. What do they want with you?" He felt like he was juggling questions and fear, and he needed answers. But there was no time. "Quiet," Elise snapped, the urgency in her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Just listen." The door rattled again, and this time Jacob heard a low, sinister laugh, a sound that made the hairs on his neck prickle. "They think they can silence you, Elise," the voice taunted. "You can't escape what's coming." An icy realization gripped Jacob. There was more at play here than what he'd ever imagined. This wasn't just about a business deal. It was about something much darker. He glanced at Elise, whose face was a mask of defiance and fear, and he felt a swell of protectiveness. He had to act, even if it killed him. Then a glimmer caught his eye, a narrow sliver of light edging under the door. His heart fell as he realized the threshold was not impenetrable. They could easily kick it down if they found the resolve to do so. "Where can we go?" he whispered urgently, searching for an escape route. But the storage closet was cramped. Their sanctuary felt more like a coffin. "Back through that way." Elise pointed to the rear of the closet where dark shadows mingled with supplies. There's a service exit. We can't stay here. That flicker of hope ignited something in him. Jacob nodded, and together, they moved with trembling urgency to reposition themselves in the cramped space. The shouting grew louder. You can't run forever, Elise. We'll find you. Elise pushed against the wall, maneuvering toward the far end of the closet. Just as Jacob followed her lead, the door they had been hiding behind flew open. He glimpsed the silhouette of a figure standing in the doorway, thick and imposing. The dark outline seemed to overshadow the dim corridor light. Don't move. The figure barked, just as it stepped fully into the room. Jacob's chest tightened, the air so suddenly electric that he could hardly breathe. They were trapped. The only exit was blocked, and panic surged within him like a flood. He felt Elise shudder beside him, a wave of fear radiating off her. No, she shouted, her icy bravado cracking. You have no idea what you're dealing with. The figure stepped closer. Jacob's heart raced as the shadows enveloped them. He had a decision to make, and it was now or never. In that terrifying moment, he made a choice to protect Elise at any cost. But as he prepared to push past her and confront the intruder, a chilling realization crept in. What if he found out the truth about Elise? With the flick of a switch, the reality of their situation slipped deeper into darkness. What was waiting for them on the other side? And who was really hunting whom? The air in the closet grew thick with tension as Jacob made his move, ready to shove past Elise. But the figure spoke again, a low rumble that punched through the panic. Step out, Elise. You can't hide from me. Jacob froze, his heart hammering in his chest. The voice was familiar, but the darkness made it impossible to distinguish the familiar from the threatening. He felt Elise's hand slip into his and squeeze tight. She was trembling, but he sensed something else in her determination masked beneath fear. Is it him? Jacob asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elise didn't answer, her breath hitching as she focused on the figure. With a swift motion, the figure stepped into the light, and Jacob's breath caught in his throat. He recognized him immediately. It was Victor, Elise's former business partner, the man she had walked away from when everything had started spiraling out of control. Victor, Elise exhaled, half in shock, half in disbelief. It all clicked into place. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Shouldn't be? Victor scoffed, a twisted smile playing on his lips. That's rich, coming from you. You thought you could just erase us. He pointed a finger at her, shaking with contempt. You thought running away would save you? We're not afraid of you. Jacob shouted, stepping in front of Elise, a surge of courage fueling him. It didn't matter why Victor was here. All that mattered was keeping Elise safe. Is that so? You should be, Victor sneered, his voice low and menacing. You have no idea what I've taken back. You have no idea what I'm capable of. The rattling door suddenly became a pounding violence, as if someone was testing the hinges. Jacob's heart raced again, adrenaline pumping faster than before. We need to get out of here now, he urged, scanning for any chance to escape. But Elise shook her head. We can't leave, Jacob. Not yet. What are you talking about? He snapped, glancing over his shoulder. Victor isn't just here to scare me. He's got information. Elise's voice trembled, but Jacob heard her determination woven in. If he has the evidence he claims, it could destroy everything, and not just for me. That's right, Victor interrupted, letting out a dark laugh. You have no idea, boy. The stakes are much higher than you think. Elise isn't the only one in danger. Jacob swallowed hard. The walls felt like they were closing in on him, every breath a struggle. What the hell are you talking about? Victor stepped closer, eyes glinting with malice. Things are in motion. There are others who want her too, he said, drawing out the words like poison. She could be walking into a war. The door rattled again, louder now, and from somewhere outside came a wild roar. Jacob could practically feel Elise's heart racing against his back. They were running out of time, and he knew it was now or never. Grab my hand. Jacob urged Elise, panic igniting every corner of his mind. We'll find another way. We're getting out. To his surprise, Elise hesitated. No, Jacob. If we run now, we're putting ourselves in direct danger. I have to confront him. Are you crazy? Jacob's voice rose, fear clawing at him. You don't know what he is capable of. It's a trap. Elise's eyes darkened. I have to confront my past. If I don't, all that I've done will be for nothing. Before Jacob could argue, the door burst open with a loud crash. Shadowed figures flooded the dim space. Gotcha. One of them laughed, eyes boring into Jacob with malevolence. The fleeting sense of safety vanished instantly. Jacob felt a rush of uncertainty. Was Elise right? Would confronting Victor save them or seal their fate? Suddenly, a high-pitched scream pierced through the chaos, and Jacob froze in place, shock freezing his limbs. Not her, he shouted, realizing too late the peril they were now in. But as the door slammed shut behind them, all hope flickered, and he knew deep down that they were about to plunge into a darkness deeper than any of them could imagine. With every heartbeat echoing in the silence, the real hunt was only just beginning. What awaited them beyond that? Darkness? The room felt like it was spinning. Shadows swarmed with unholy life as Jacob's eyes darted between Victor and the masked figures who had just stormed in. Fear wrapped itself around his throat, squeezing until it was hard to breathe. He could barely comprehend the chaotic scene unfolding before him. The sudden arrival of the strangers only intensified the dread building in his chest. "Get away from her," Jacob shouted as instinct kicked in. He placed himself between Elise and the menacing figures, ready to fight. A rush of adrenaline surged through him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was nothing but a mouse facing down a pack of hungry wolves. Victor threw back his head and laughed, his mirth echoing around the room like a sinister chime. "Brave boy, aren't you? But bravery without knowledge is just foolishness. You have no idea what you're dealing with." His voice dripped with venom. Elise's grip on Jacob's arm tightened, her face pale but resolved. "We can't let them take me, Jacob. I want to shut up," barked one of the intruders, stepping forward with a snarl. "Or you'll wish that you had." He moved close enough that Jacob could make out the jagged scar on his cheek and the glint of a blade tucked near his waist. "Just hand her over, Victor," the scarred man said, his eyes darting to Elise, then back to Jacob. He didn't even flinch in the face of Jacob's protective stance. Why make this harder than it needs to be? Jacob felt his heart sink. What kind of game were they playing? Their intent was clear. Elise was not just a target. She was a prize, one that everyone seemed eager to claim. "Listen to me, Elise, we have to go," Jacob pleaded, urgency flooding his voice. The pounding outside was relentless. It wouldn't be long before someone broke through. But Victor raised a hand, silencing Jacob's plea. "She's not running anywhere. Not until we settle our business." His eyes locked onto Elise, an unsettling mix of anger and greed. "You think you can erase the past? That you can just walk away? That is not how this works." Jacob, Elise whispered, her voice breaking. "If he has the evidence, this is bigger than both of us. I can't let him use it against anyone else. I need to face him." The walls closed in. Jacob's head spun with confusion and fear, all while rage bubbled beneath the surface. "This isn't just about you. They're going to hurt you, Elise." "Enough," Victor roared, his patience wearing thin. "You have no clue, boy, about the monsters you're dealing with. You think saving her will make you a hero? This isn't a fairy tale. You both have nightmares lurking around every corner. So, will you hand her over, or do I have to drag her out myself?" The door quivered again behind him. The sound of footsteps grew louder, and the shadows began to move closer. Jacob felt like he was being swept away in a current, helpless against the tide. Suddenly, Elise broke away from him, stepping closer to Victor. The determination flickering in her eyes replaced all traces of fear. "No, I want to be your pawn anymore." A brittle strength surged through her voice, and Jacob realized, as much as she feared, she was ready to face this truth. Tension grew heavier, a silent storm brewing as Victor snarled. "Then it's war, and you'll wish you had run the moment you had the chance." As the figures lunged forward, Jacob found the courage to fight back, fists clenched. The first blow came suddenly, catching him off guard, but he wouldn't go down without a struggle. He had to protect Elise, no matter the cost. But as chaos erupted, a loud crash boomed just outside the door, and Jacob realized their worst fears were only beginning to unfold. Who were these new allies or foes? Would Elise's bravery now seal their fate, or was there a glimmer of hope hidden somewhere in the darkness? Just then, a voice shouted from the hallway, "Police! Everyone, drop your weapons." The sound rang out like a beacon, but just as quickly, it was drowned in confusion as the room turned into pure madness. What had the police stumbled into? And who would come out alive? The air thickened with panic as bodies collided, cries mingling with the clamor of the police command. Jacob's heart raced, adrenaline coursing through his veins as the masked intruders hesitated. In the split second that they paused, Jacob's instincts kicked in. He lunged toward the nearest figure, throwing all his weight into a punch. It connected with a satisfying thud, knocking the attacker backward. "Now," he shouted, turning to Elise. She met his gaze, wide-eyed but resolute, and together they pushed through the chaos. As they raced towards the only exit, the uncertainty of their surroundings gripped him like a vice. Shouts of the police filled the air, but the jolting fear of the men behind them was palpable. Victor was still standing, cape of menace and authority draped before them. He bellowed, "Don't let them get away." His voice sliced through the noise, every syllable piercing Jacob's resolve. Jacob risked a glance back. The scarred man had regained his footing and was now snarling, his blade glinting under the flickering light. "Go, go!" Jacob yelled, urgency flooding his voice as Elise stumbled slightly. He caught her by the arm, propelling them forward. Their feet echoed against the hard floor, matching the rising tension within them. "Stay close," Jacob insisted, fear gnawing at him like a ravenous beast. Every word Victor had spoken echoed in his mind. This was no fairy tale, and now they faced a real monster. As they reached the door, Jacob reached for the handle when a deafening crash erupted across the room. The sound of splintering wood and shattering glass rang out, and Jacob turned just in time to see the door to the office burst open. More masked figures flooded the entryway, and panic surged through Jacob anew. Elise recoiled, her resolve momentarily fraying. "Jacob, what do we do now?" she stammered, scanning the rapidly filling room for an escape. Rogue emotions roared through Jacob: fear, hope, and fierce determination. "We fight. We don't let them take us." Amidst the turmoil, the police shouted for compliance, but the chaos thickened like a sinister fog. Jacob could see Victor's smug smirk cutting through the melee. This was a game to him, a twisted dance where everyone else was expendable. The newcomer masked men surged forward, weapons drawn. And then, amidst the shouts and violence, Jacob caught a glimpse of movement behind them, a figure wearing a police uniform. "Get down," shouted an officer, and without hesitation, Jacob ducked, pulling Elise to the ground just as gunshots echoed through the room. He couldn't tell if they were fired by the police or intruders, but he felt a sickening twist in his stomach. "Stay low. Stay together," the same officer commanded, advancing into the fray, gun raised. The air crackled with tension, and Jacob felt adrenaline heighten his senses. This moment was a blur, yet crystal clear. Elise squeezed his hand, fear evident in her eyes, but also something else. Defiance. She glanced toward Victor, who seemed to weigh his options, contemplating his next move. In that fleeting moment, realization struck Jacob. The fight wasn't just for survival, it was for the truth. If Elise faced Victor, she could potentially dismantle his web of lies forever. "Elise," Jacob shouted over the din, "you need to confront him now. Grab whatever proof you can." She hesitated, fear flashing across her features, but then nodded fiercely. With renewed grit, Elise bolted toward Victor, weaving through the chaos. Jacob's pulse raced as he instinctively followed, ready to shield her from the storm closing in. "Stop her," Victor screeched, fury etched on his face as he prepared to launch forward, but it was too late. As Elise squared off against him, the room seemed to hold its breath, the tides of chaos and hope crashing together. What would happen when they met at the center of their storm? The police were closing in, but with Victor's men still lurking, the real battle was far from over. Would Elise's audacity be their salvation, or would the truth burn them all? In that moment, everything hinged on one decision. Was it bravery or folly that would redefine their fates? Jacob's heart pounded like a war drum as he sprinted toward Elise, every instinct screaming for survival. Time stretched, and amid the chaos, moments felt endless. He could see the primal determination in Elise's eyes. She had taken charge, charging at Victor like a force of nature. But behind her, the henchmen closed in a cloud of danger that threatened to swallow them whole. "Cover me," Elise yelled, and with a nod, he sprang forward, positioning himself as a human barrier between her and the advancing shadows. Victor sneered, his eyes alight with arrogance. You think you can take me down, girl? He spat. Elise didn't falter. Instead, her resolve hardened. I don't just think so, I know so. Suddenly, a deafening gunshot rang out, splintering through the air. Jacob's body instinctively tensed. He turned just in time to see an officer hit the ground, the sound of the shot echoing in his ears like a death knell. The room erupted into chaos as patrons gasped and ducked for cover. Elise, we need to move, Jacob shouted, panic threatening to overtake him. He was desperate to reach her, to pull her away from Victor's malevolent grip. Victor stepped forward, his own weapon drawn, laughter tinged with madness spilling from his lips. You're outmatched, my dear. This is not your fight. But Elise stood firm, fists clenched, her body forming a small fortress of defiance. The truth is stronger than any weapon you possess, she retorted, her voice steady, echoing with newfound strength. Just then, another officer burst through the crowd. Officer Mills, a familiar figure. Elise, get down, she shouted, darting in with her firearm raised, scanning the room for threats. Jacob's heart swelled with hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this nightmare. Elise seized the moment. There are files in Victor's office. Evidence of everything he has done. She gestured urgently. Then we need them now. Officer Mills commanded. Adams, range, cover us. She shouted to her teammates. In an instant, the officers surrounded Elise and Jacob, shields of authority ready to protect them. Victor's expression darkened. You are making a grave mistake, he warned, eyes narrowing. Carl, another of Victor's men, charged forward. His blade slashed through the air, catching Jacob's eye. Without thinking, Jacob lunged, throwing all his weight behind a punch that landed square on Carl's jaw. The man crumpled to the ground, stunned. The room surged like a tide, bodies crashing together. Jacob couldn't tell where he ended, and the chaos began. He grabbed Elise's hand again, feeling the sweat slick against his palm. They were a team now, two souls fighting against the dark. Now, Jacob yelled. To the office. Elise nodded, and they sprinted toward the doorway. They could hear the chaos behind them, shouts and grunts as the firefight raged on. Just as they reached the door, Jacob glanced back. Victor's voice roared above the interruption. Elise, he bellowed, malice etched in every word. You'll regret this. The threat hung in the air like smoke. As they dashed inside the office, Elise's breathing matched Jacob's frantic pace. The door slammed behind them. Tension filled the room as they surveyed the chaos outside through a cracked window. Elise turned to him, eyes ablaze with determination. I have to find those files. They have everything. If we can expose him, what if they didn't make it in time? Fear whispered deep inside Jacob, but he pushed it away. I'll cover you. Just find something, anything. As Elise raced to the desk, a chilling realization crept into Jacob's mind. What if Victor had anticipated their every move? What if they were already too late? The sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, each thud promising violence. With every heartbeat, Jacob felt the walls closing in. He pushed aside the creeping doubt. They had each other, and that glimmer of hope was a torch in the darkest of nights. But would it be enough? Suddenly, the door shook with a heavy thump, followed by Victor's taunting voice. You think you can hide forever? This game is far from over. And then, the door began to splinter. Their time was running out. Would they find the evidence before Victor closed in on them? Or would the truth they sought be buried forever in his shadow? Jacob's breath came in heavy gasps as he remained firmly at the door, his body tense and ready. He could hear Victor's men prowling just outside, their heavy boots hunting, searching. Every thud against the door tightened the knot of fear in his stomach. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand. Come on, Elise. Just find it, he urged, his voice a low whisper, trembling against the uncertainty. Elise rifled through the desk drawers, her hands moving like lightning. Papers flew, pens rolled, and the metallic tang of adrenaline filled the air as she searched with frantic determination. The risk of getting caught clung to them, thick and suffocating. Where is it? She muttered, her eyes scanning each page hastily. It has to be here. Victor's voice boomed again, closer this time. You're running out of time. A loud crack sounded, making Jacob jump. The door rattled violently, threatening to break apart. He pressed his weight against it, muscles straining, his thoughts racing. What if they couldn't hold him off? What if they were trapped here forever? But Elise's voice cut through the chaos. There, I found something. Jacob turned, heart racing, as she unfolded a thick stack of documents, the weight of the paper appearing monumental. She looked up, eyes wide with revelation. This is it. Contracts, transactions, everything Victor has been doing behind the scenes. Let us go. We need to get it to Officer Mills. Jacob urged, desperation clear in his voice. The files were the key to everything, the response they needed to expose Victor once and for all. Another thud reverberated against the door, and Jacob's resolve started to waver. Elise, we don't have much time. The door shuddered violently as Victor shouted, You think you can just escape? I'll make you regret this chase. His laughter was a cold edge, pricking at Jacob's skin, filling him with dread. Go, now, Elise yelled, shoving the documents into Jacob's hands in a flurry of movement. She whipped around, pulling him toward the window. We'll have to climb out the back. It's our only chance. Right as they turned, the door burst open, splintering wood flying in every direction. Victor stood there, a phantom cloaked in fury, flanked by two of his henchmen. Did you honestly think you could get away with this? He snarled, a wolf closing in on its prey. Jacob felt the surge of fight-or-flight adrenaline spike, each nerve igniting with fear. Run, he shouted, his voice raw with urgency. Elise grabbed his arm, and they bolted toward the window. The chaos of rushing feet and growling commands blurred in their ears. Jacob heard his heart drum. He couldn't think of failure. They had fought too hard. As they jumped from the window, the world shifted a free fall from safety to uncertain escape. The ground rushed up to meet them like a speeding train, and Jacob instinctively shielded Elise as they landed with a hard thud, crashing over scattered debris. Pain shot through his side, but he pushed it aside as he gripped her hand, ready to pull her up. Go, he gasped, scanning their surroundings for a safe exit. Then, the sound of heavy boots echoed behind them. They were still in danger, but hope pulsed in Jacob's veins like fire. This way. They sprinted into the shadows, adrenaline coursing, the evidence clutched tightly in his grip, a pact against Victor's imminent threat. The darkness wrapped around them, a cloak of uncertainty, but it kept them hidden, for now. And as they turned a final corner, Jacob felt a rush of possibility. They were alive, they had a chance. But as they skidded to a halt, his blood ran cold. A police car awaited them at the end of the alley, but standing there, using the light from the vehicle, was someone unexpected. Jacob? The voice called softly, shocked. What happened here? The revelation struck him like a thunderbolt. Could he trust her? Would she help them? The weight of the moment hung heavy. Their hopes balanced precariously on the edge of recognition, and coming down hard on them was Victor's all-consuming threat, tightening like a noose. What lay ahead would force them to confront not only each other, but the darker truths of their pasts. Jacob's mind raced as he stared into the eyes of the woman standing before him. Officer Carla Hayes stood there, her uniform glistening under the harsh lights of the police car. He had known her for years, a beacon of justice in their small town, but now doubts swirled like a storm cloud. Did she have Victor's backing? He didn't have time for second-guessing. Elise, we need to say something, Jacob said, his voice barely a whisper, fear slicing through every word. Elise nodded, her face pale, still processing the sudden shift from a desperate escape to potential safety. Jacob. Elise. Officer Hayes called again, urgency lacing her tone. What is going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. A crack of thunder boomed overhead, and Jacob felt the urge to bolt again intensify. But this was Officer Hayes. She was supposed to be their ally. Victor's men are right behind us. We found evidence of everything he has been doing. We need to get it to you. Jacob blurted, cradling the stack of documents like a lifeline, the weight nearly unbearable. Evidence. Hayes furrowed her brow, shifting her gaze to the alley behind them. Why would they be chasing you? Because we have what they don't want getting out. Elise exclaimed, her voice rising with desperation. Suddenly, a sharp clang sounded from the entrance of the alley. Dark figures spilled into view, the silhouette of Victor's men illuminated momentarily by the flickering streetlights. Their menacing footfalls echoed like a death knell, panic igniting in Jacob's chest. Get in the car. Officer Hayes yelled, her voice cutting through the encroaching dread. They rushed toward the police car, Jacob's heart pounding like war drums. As he climbed into the back seat, he glanced at Elise, her eyes wide with disbelief. He reached for her hand, squeezing it, sharing a silent vow that they wouldn't let Victor take them down. Hayes fumbled with her gun, glancing nervously at the advancing shadows. "Stay down," she ordered, the firmness in her voice knocking some sense back into Jacob as he crouched low. The men crept closer, their haunting murmurs whispering threats into the night. "We'll find you, Jacob." This isn't over. Victor's guttural voice crawled through the air like poison. Elise shuddered against him, her grip shaking. "What are we going to do?" In that moment, a sudden realization hit Jacob. The documents. If we can get them to Officer Mills, it will all end. "Mr. Mills is not here," Hayes interjected grimly. "But I have a plan." She reached for her radio, her fingers steady. "I need backup now." The men stopped as headlights from another police vehicle sliced through the darkness. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. Hope rushed back in like a tide. "Step away from the car." A commanding voice boomed. A chorus of chaos erupted. Victor's men snarled, drawing weapons, while Hayes emerged from the car, pointing her gun straight ahead. "You are under arrest. Put your hands where I can see them." In the chaos, Jacob's thoughts flipped back to the flaming uncertainty of the past few hours. "Elise, hold on tight." Before they knew it, both the police and Victor's men clashed in a flurry of shouts and violence. Bullets ricocheted, chaos erupted, and smoke began to billow as a flurry of bodies moved around them. Jacob's heart raced as he watched Elise's eyes widen at the shocking circumstances spiraling out of control. "This was supposed to be our chance, Jacob," she shouted, fear drenching her voice. But just then, through the turmoil, a figure loomed in the shadows. Victor, his expression twisted with pure rage, pushed forward through the melee, his anger palpable, his presence suffocating. "You think you can run from me? You're only delaying the inevitable." He spat, fury radiating from him like heat waves. As Officer Hayes struggled with one of the men, Jacob felt a surge of determination. "We need to back her up." He surged forward, adrenaline pumping through his limbs. Elise's voice rang out, panic palpable. "Jacob, wait." "You can't," but he was already moving, instinct driving him. Suddenly, chaos erupted anew as gunfire filled the air. Could they confront Victor one last time? Would this be the end for them, or was it merely the beginning? In the haze of threats and desperation, everything hung in a delicate balance, threatening to tip in either direction. Jacob's grip on Elise's hand tightened as chaos erupted around them. The once silent alleyway was transformed into a cacophony of shouts and gunfire, echoing off the cold brick walls. Fear gripped him, yet an undeniable urgency propelled him forward. He had to protect her. "Stick close," Jacob shouted, pulling her deeper into the fray, his heart pounding fiercely against his ribs. He spotted Officer Hayes struggling against one of Victor's men and surged toward them, adrenaline surging through every fiber of his being. He could see the glint of panic in the officer's eyes, and in that moment, he knew they had to stand together against Victor's looming threat. "Get back," Jacob yelled, lunging at the man with a wild swing. It connected, sending the henchman staggering back. A small victory, but Jacob felt no triumph, only the gnawing urgency to maintain their drive for survival. Elise stayed by his side, her determination bolstering his resolve. "Keep moving," Hayes called out, managing to wrestle free from her assailant as she aimed her weapon. "We can't let them corner us." But even as they fought, the shadows of Victor's men swarmed around them like a pack of wolves. "You can't hold on forever," one yelled, voice laced with manic laughter. Jacob's heart raced. He couldn't let them catch Elise. "Not now." Elise stepped forward. "We have evidence," she shouted, lifting the stack of documents high above her head. "You have to let us go." Victor's men hesitated, the glimmer of uncertainty flickering across their faces. But Victor, unyielding and furious, stepped into the light, his expression twisted into a terrifying mask of rage. "You think anyone cares about some pathetic papers? You're nothing without me," he growled, closing in on their position. "Backup is on the way," Hayes shouted, her voice rising above the surrounding chaos, trying to instill a sense of urgency. "If we can keep him at bay for just a few more moments, then let us make sure they don't get a chance." Jacob replied, remembering the fear he felt moments ago. He had to stand firm. Gathering his courage, he stepped in front of Elise once more, preparing to shield her from Victor's wrath. "You've lost, Victor. This is over." Victor smirked, a sinister glimmer in his eye. "You think you're a hero, huh? This is far from over," he sneered, motioning to his men. "Get them." The shout rang out like a bell tolling for their doom. The henchmen surged forward, but in that moment a chorus of sirens wailed in the distance, a promise of salvation slicing through the tension. The harsh lights of police cars illuminated the alleyway, sending shadows retreating. "Fall back," Hayes commanded, stepping into the line of fire as she aimed her weapon at Victor. "This is your last chance. Step down or face the consequences." Victor's bravado wavered, a flicker of doubt in his eyes as the tide began to turn. "You think you can stop me?" he snarled, face draining of color. He glanced around desperately as officers poured into the alley, weapons drawn and shouts ringing out. Jacob felt the weight of possibility hang in the air. The end was in sight. "Now, Elise. Now's the time," he urged, shoveling the papers into her trembling hands. "Get them to Officer Mills." Elise hesitated, fear flickering across her features. But then, determination set in. She clutched the documents tightly, her shoulders squared. "I won't let you win," she declared, determination igniting her spirit. With that, she launched herself forward, running toward the safety of the officers breaking through the chaos. Jacob couldn't help but feel pride as Elise raced ahead, fierce and unwavering. He turned back to Victor. "This is it for you. You can't run from justice." Victor's face twisted in rage. "You don't know who you're messing with," he howled, scrambling to regain his composure, but it was too late. "Hands in the air. Now." Officers shouted, weapons trained on Victor and his crew. With the police closing in, their dominance shattered within moments, Elise handed the documents over to Officer Mills. Jacob felt a swell of relief wash over him. They had done it. They had brought Victor to justice. "You're done, Victor," Mills said, steamrolling over the defiance on his face. As the officers closed in, Jacob turned to Elise, who caught his eye. Her breath was quick, but the terror that had shadowed her features all night had finally begun to fade. Hope flickered anew. "Let us get out of here," he said softly, wrapping a protective arm around her shoulders. "It's not over yet, but it's a start." Elise nodded, leaning into him, and together they stepped forward into the embrace of dawn. The future was still uncertain, but they would face it together. The embers of their fight danced behind them, shuddering into the shadows of the night, leaving behind the whispers of a nightmare turning to memory. Together, they would redefine their narrative. The battle had changed them, but it also forged an unbreakable bond of friendship built on resilience and a fierce will to survive. As they disappeared into the soft light of day, a new path unfolded before them, a chance to rebuild, to stand strong amidst the fragments of their past. Now, here's where I need you to act. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next gripping story. Smash that like button to help us spread the word and keep this adventure alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this wild ride. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your support means everything.